That's not acceptable. That is not an acceptable side effect. Death is never an acceptable side effect. I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle rant. Today's topic is unnecessary deaths in our industry. That is the fitness and bodybuilding industry. I just read an article the day after Christmas about the death of a 21-year-old fitness enthusiast who was using DNP, also known as dinitrophenol. I've talked about this in the past. It warrants repeating because there are drugs in the bodybuilding, fitness, health, weight loss category that are very dangerous and that should never be used. This is one of them. And while no name was released on the person who passed, probably just for whatever reason, maybe his parents didn't want the name released. I don't know who it is personally. He had a history of use with anabolic steroids, but they said that the cause of death was certainly DNP use over a 6-month period. He was obsessed with being lean and muscular and posting pictures of himself on Instagram, I'm sure, to his adoring fans that really were not adoring fans. But a lot of people get validation through social media, and he felt the need to use this dinitrophenol DNP product. How does it work? What does it do? Why is it dangerous? I think that's something that we should talk about right now. During the burning of body fat, we call it fatty acid oxidation, which occurs inside the muscle cells, inside little organelles, which we call the mitochondria. The mitochondria are basically the energy producing units of the cell. And inside those mitochondria is where fatty acids, fats, get oxidized or burned up essentially for fuel. And they create what we call ATP, which is the energy source for the muscle cell. Now, the burning of fats produces way, way more ATP energy than, say, the burning of carbs does. The reason why our bodies will use carbs, glucose, as a fuel source is because it generates ATP very quickly. Even though it's a very small amount, it can generate it quickly, whereas fatty acids take longer to oxidize in the mitochondria to produce fuel, but they produce a lot more energy. So what this DNP does is right before the ATP is about to be produced inside those mitochondria, it disconnects part of the chain or disconnects part of the process. I'm making this more simplistic than it needs to be because it's not important, the process. We call it oxidative phosphorylation. So right before ATP is about to be produced, the mitochondrial membrane becomes porous and allows the protons that are normally going to go and drive this ATP synthesis to leak out. So it's creating a leaky membrane. And when these protons leak out of the mitochondrial membrane, they're released as heat. So you're basically wasting energy as heat as opposed to creating the ATP. So what does the cell think is happening? It thinks it's not producing the energy it should, so it starts burning more fat. So what you're doing is you're tricking the muscle cells into burning more fat because it's losing the ATP that would normally produce as heat. Sounds like a great plan, right? Yeah, it is. You're basically taking all these fats that would normally be produced into ATP to be released as heat. And so the body has to now burn more fat. So you're making your body and forcing it essentially to burn more fat. The problem is that when this heat is released, it's released in such great amounts that it can actually start to destroy the cells themselves. So it basically cooks the cells. Now, the more DNP you use, the more of this effect you get. The problem is that as you start wasting more and more fuel, you start to lose energy. You don't feel like training in the gym because you're not producing any ATP. You're basically, starving your body of the fuel it needs. And you start feeling crappy because now the cells start to become damaged by this excessive heat that's released. And if anyone's ever taken DNP, I have not, but I know a lot of people that have, you feel warm all the time. And a lot of times in situations where people are in a very dangerous situation with maybe they've taken too much and the body's producing too much heat, they have to actually get into an ice bath to cool their bodies down. And a lot of times that will save them. The problem with DNP, okay, it's not the mechanism by which it works by, is that the effective dose to burn fat is very, very, very close, too close for comfort, in fact, to the lethal dose of the stuff. So you have to almost get to lethal levels of DNP to actually get fat burning from it. And look, we know the industry that we're in. People tend to say, well, if some is good, we'll use more is better. With DNP, more is better means more death. It doesn't mean better fat burning effects. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm just gonna feel bad for a couple hours. It could mean that you die. And that's exactly what happened in this case of this 21-year-old kid. He'd been doing it for 6 months, and you know what happens? You start to get, when you first start doing it, you're very scared, right? You're like, oh, I'm only gonna use a little bit. I'm not gonna go over the limit because I'm so scared. And then you know what happens? You use it, and it's like, well, this isn't so bad. Yeah, I'm a little hot, but I'll put the air conditioning on, I'll put a fan on me. But I'm burning a lot more fat, and you little by little you up the dose, and before you know it, like I said, because the lethal dose and the effective dose are so close, you can very easily go over that edge, and now you're in a situation that's very dire, and if there's no one around to help you out, you die, and that's how dangerous this compound is. It's so dangerous, in fact, that I have never, ever told anyone ever to use this compound, nor will I give out a procedure for people to use it. I'll never give out a protocol because there is no safe protocol for this drug. Do people use it? Yes. Is it super dangerous and are they crazy to use it? 100%. This is not a drug that anyone should use. Why? Because people die from it. People don't die from taking, oh, I took, 1,000 milligrams of testosterone this week, or and I decided to do 2,000 next week. They don't die from that. Okay, they don't die from taking GH in excessive dosages. They die from taking too much DNP and quickly. Just like diuretics. If you overdo diuretics, you can die too. And we've talked about this in the past. And I don't want to transition into that, but we're talking about DNP right now. And we just lost a 21-year-old kid because of this. And unfortunately, I think there's too many bro coaches out there, or I call them Instagram or TikTok coaches, that don't understand. And I don't think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to get people hurt or trying to kill people. I think they just don't know. They're ignorant. They don't have the science. They don't understand the mechanisms by which this works. And they think that, hey, if I can get these guys in shape, I'm going to be the new coach of the day and I'm going to make a lot of money. And so they recommend things recklessly like DNP because it does burn fat. And maybe a couple people get, success with it. And then all it takes is one person to take just a little too much, or maybe they didn't know what their the dose would be too much for that, because everyone's body responds a little differently to the compound, and they went over the edge and they died. That's not acceptable. That is not an acceptable side effect. Death is never an acceptable side effect. Remember that. If that's a possibility, then it should never be used. This drug should never be used. And I see people recklessly selling it, and I see recklessly recommending it. And I know pros that have been, not that they wanted to do it, but their coaches have told them to do it, and they've wound up in having problems with this. It is not good. Even if you don't kill yourself, you can cook organs, you can cook cells. You're destroying tissue in your body. That can't be good long term. That can't be good if you're cooking liver cells, Yes, the liver's regenerative, but I don't want to destroy my liver any faster than I have to. You're already taking drugs that are putting stress on the liver. I don't want to cook my kidney cells. I don't want to cook my cardiac cells. I need my heart, right? So I don't want to cook my brain cells for sure. So this is a very dangerous scenario out there that does exist. I'm not talking about this like, hey, no one does this. A lot of people do this. Too many people. And a lot of times I don't say anything because I'm not going to criticize other coaches, but when I see a death like this pop up, I think every once in a while it's a good idea to do a reminder video so that people understand that they're messing with dangerous compounds. This is not something that could be used safely. If it could be, I would give you a protocol for it. But I'm not giving you a protocol because I know that it cannot be used safely. if you take a dose that's safe, it doesn't burn fat. And then what happens is you want to take more. So it's like a very slippery slope. It's like playing Russian roulette. It is not worth it. Trust me, there's plenty of other fat burners out there that work really, really well. You know, from clenbuterol to T3 that can be used in dosages that are safe and that are not going to kill you. I don't understand why anyone would want to roll the dice like this. It's just not worth it. There's so many other, compounds out there. Hey, how about doing some cardio? How about cutting back your carbs in your diet? Suffering a little bit. That works too. A lot safer too. I got news for you. It's good for the soul. Suffering is good for the soul, they always say. Look, I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend. I hope you have a safe New Year's planned. And 2025 is going to be a great year. We got a lot of great stuff coming out on RX Muscle, a lot of great coverage coming up. We got a lot of bodybuilding shows we're going to be covering. The Arnold Classic is coming up, giving away $500,000 to first place. We got a lineup that's worthy of the Olympia. Look, if you want to be the best that you can be, use safe protocols. We know that a lot of the stuff we do in bodybuilding has risk associated with it, but we want to minimize death because that is not an acceptable side effect. Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle Rant.